Okay, my friends. So it is 6 o'clock and I want to honor your time and thank you for being on time. So let's go ahead and get started with tonight's webinar on digital citizenship and communication skills. Let me go ahead and move on so that we can introduce ourselves to you. If you are here again to learn about digital citizenship skills, digital fluency, how to communicate effectively with others, you're definitely in the right place. This is the kickoff for our career success sequence, which is a series of events that we are hosting this semester to get students ready and prepared for not only the world of work, but also just how to be prepared to face things like interviewing while in high school for a job or for a scholarship or for college. So the skills that we'll be covering in the career success sequence throughout the rest of the semester address all of these issues. And we hope that you'll join us not only tonight, but for the remaining events throughout the rest of the semester. So before we get started, I wanted to go over a couple housekeeping items with all of you so that we're all on the same page. If you see at any point a chain link icon on the screen, that means that there is a linked resource there for you when we send you the copy of tonight's presentation. That means that there is something for you to click on and look at in your own time. Your cameras and microphones are off. This is a webinar setting, so you just have to sit and enjoy and listen and learn, but we cannot hear you, we cannot see you. This recording will be available to you on our YouTube channel after tonight. So if you need to leave early, no problem. We hope that you will stay for the entirety of the presentation, but if you have to go, just know that you have access to this presentation later. If you have any questions, we invite you to use the Q&A function that should be located on your screen, and it does say Q&A. This is the best way for us to be able to address all of your questions in an orderly fashion, as questions can get lost in the chat. So feel free to use the Q&A if you have any questions. And again, just remember that this recording will be available to all of you on YouTube tomorrow. So Futureology is the team that you see here with you tonight, and we have everybody from the Futureology team joining us. We are Capistrano Unified School District's College and Career Counseling Program. We are all credentialed school counselors. We are experienced college admissions readers, and we are data-driven. We make sure that everything that we do for the students of CUSD is backed in data and based on the needs of our families. We have a very special guest joining us tonight. We have our coordinator of college and career, Ms. Erica Gardner. And we're lucky to have her support and for her to be here with us. But our team is ever growing and expanding, and we're here to support the students of CUSD in the areas of college and career. We provide one-on-one appointments, webinars like this, workshops. We support students in the college and career centers that are currently operating at Dana Hills High School, Capo Valley High School, and Aliso Miguel High School. And we will be here, throughout your journey as students to support you in your exploration and going into college app season or planning for after high school, whatever you decide to do. So for tonight, this is our agenda. This is what we will be going over, what we will be covering with you so that you know upfront what's in store, okay? We're gonna start off by defining 21st century skills because in fact, digital fluency, digital citizenship, and communication, which is the title of tonight's webinar, those are 21st century skills. So we have to define that for you first so that you understand what they are and the importance of them. After that, we're going to go into communication basics. Very essential information that you as students should know in order to be more effective communicators in your life. And this impacts every facet of your life, personally and professionally, right? So we're going to start with that. Transition into talking about communication etiquette, which is going to be really important as you all prepare to apply for leadership positions in school, apply for jobs while you're in school, start looking for colleges to apply to, applying for scholarships, right? Communication etiquette is vital for you to learn so that you are presenting the best version of yourself to those around you and to your community. Following that, we're going to talk about digital fluency, about your digital footprint, about what it means to have a responsible kind of digital online presence and identity in the information age. So we're going to talk about that and the importance of managing that image of yourself, right? And being able to use the digital sphere, the internet responsibly and to your advantage. Okay, so that's what we have lined up for you this evening. Again, if you have any questions, pop it in the Q&A. Let's go ahead and start with what 21st century skills are. This is the start, right? We need to know what these are for you to appreciate more as we go into specifically what communication and digital fluency are. So in short, right, this is a short definition. The skills students need, these are 21st century skills. These are the skills that you need in your career during the information age, AKA the age of the internet, okay? So these are skills that are vital to all people as they enter the world of work. But I would say that it's not only important for you to have these skills in work, it's important for you to have these skills in life generally, right? To be able to exercise these skills and understand what they are and practice them over time will lead you to have greater satisfaction in your life and in your work life, okay? So on the screen, you can see the 12 kind of essential 21st century skills. Let's break them down a little bit more and talk about it. So on the top of the image that you see in front of you, we have the 4 21st century skills that we could consider learning skills, okay? So what exactly are learning skills? They're essentially the skills that teach you the mental process required to adapt to any given situation. These 4 C's, you can think of them as, right, are the skills that you should be able to practice and learn over time so that you can, again, solve problems at work and in life so that you can adapt to any situation that might come up. And the world of work is definitely changing, right? Things change a lot faster these days. And people, workers, employees who have the ability to adapt quickly and to problem solve quickly, they are the ones who thrive in this age of information, right? So learning skills are important and you see them here: critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, communication, which we'll be talking about today. I would argue that communication is one of the most vital skills that you could possibly learn in life because it will lead to so much more clarification and understanding between you and the world around you, right? But these skills are, again, the important learning skills that you should be adapting and growing over the course of your journey throughout life, not just high school. So beyond learning skills, there are specific literacy skills, under that umbrella of 21st century skills, right? Literacy skills are specifically concerned with digital comprehension, right? They have to do with actually understanding the information that you see in front of you when you're on the internet, when you're looking at a website, when you're browsing through social media. To have effective, good literacy skills means that you are able to discern fact from fiction, that you're able to find, obtain, communicate accurate information digitally, okay? So while the first 4 skills were learning skills like adaptability skills, skills that you need to use that stem from your brain, right? From your ability to solve problems, we move then into literacy skills. I keep struggling with literacy, but literacy skills, right, that have to do with more of that technological aspect of life now these days in the information age, and your ability to understand the information that's being shared with you and making sure, again, that you know how to discern between fact and fiction online. There's so much going on out there on the internet, and it's important for you to understand, how to research and how to analyze the information in front of you to determine if it is a reliable source of data or not. So we're covering today communication, right? And we're covering today kind of that digital literacy component of 21st century skills. Finally, at the bottom, you'll see life skills. And these are all kind of the skills under the 21st century umbrella that are going to be really important for you in life, that can really help you personally, right? Because they pertain oftentimes to your personal life, but they're also incredibly applicable to your professional life. Having these life skills, having these, and I would consider them soft skills, right? They're not like technical skills, like typing 90 words per minute. That's a technical hard skill. Life skills are these soft skills, these traits, these character traits that help you cope, that help you communicate and connect to those around you. And if you have these skills, you are able to, again, find that satisfaction and that success personally, but also translate these skills into the professional setting and find success and happiness there as well. So these are the 21st century skills that are important that we want to, emphasize with you over time and expose you to more over time. Tonight specifically, we are talking about communication skills and digital literacy or fluency, okay? It's probably two of the most important skills for you to understand as a high school student. Two skills that can take you a long way. So let's start off with communication basics. So you have a basic understanding of what it means to communicate, right? In short, and you'll see the subtitle here, it is to understand and to be understood. Excuse the typo, okay? So let's move forward. This is a very basic definition of the word to communicate or communication. What is communication? Essentially, it is transferring information to produce greater understanding. That's all it is. So when you are trying to communicate with somebody, there's information that you have that you want them to have. Furthermore, you don't only want them to have it, you want them to understand it. That's the crux of communication, is making sure that what you are sharing with somebody or what they are sharing with you is mutually understood between the two of you. That's when you know it's successful communication, is when both of you understand what the heck is going on, right? So when we think of communication, it's not just talking to each other. A lot of us associate communicating with talking, right? With speaking to each other. But there are different types of communication that we have. One of them is verbal. That's having a conversation with somebody. That's giving a speech, right? It is when you use your words, when you are actually verbalizing these ideas to share with other people. That is definitely the most common practice of communication in our lives. But there is also nonverbal communication. Think about the last time you had a conversation with a really difficult person, or it was an unpleasant communication. Think about their body language. Think about their face, right? The last kind of fight you had or something like that. They were showing you nonverbal indicators of how they felt. So when we communicate not only with our words and with what's coming out of our mouths, but we are also communicating with the way we posture our bodies, with the facial expressions that we make, with the eye contact that we make, or the lack of eye contact that we make, right? So when you think of communication and you're thinking of being a better communicator, it's important for you to realize that you are also communicating with your body. And one of the skills that we want you to focus on over time is to be able to communicate effectively both ways. Furthermore, you can communicate in written form, right? You've sent a text message before, you've written essays for English, you have written emails to your counselors and your teachers and family members, right? Written communication is really important. And the tricky thing about written communication, which some of you might have experienced, is it is really difficult to communicate tone when you are writing. Sometimes you can mean something super harmlessly, but the way it is written, people might take it differently, right? So to be able to communicate effectively in writing means to be able to share your thoughts in a way that your intention and the spirit behind what you're trying to say is also communicated when you are writing, so that they really get a sense of what you're coming from, where you're coming from, what your vibe is, right? Think about, and Erica is going to cover this a little bit later, but think about writing an email to somebody in all caps and the tone that that might set across to somebody, right? That is a form of communication that could be really misconstrued. So food for thought that we will cover a little bit more later. But finally, everybody, the final kind of form of communication that we practice day to day is, or not day to day always, but sometimes is visual communication. Think of ads for your favorite makeup brand or for, like a clothing brand that you like. Think of the things that you post on social media, right? Any kind of visual image that you share on social media, a meme, that is you communicating to the world a sentiment that you agree with or that you find to be compelling or moving in some way, right? We communicate visually in all sorts of different ways. We can do it during a presentation like this one. I'm using graphs and this image to communicate to you that we're talking about sharing ideas, right? You can use signs, but just remember that communication comes in different forms: verbal, nonverbal, written, visual, right? These are the different ways that we share how we feel, what we think with other people. And it's important that we're doing this, appropriately, given whatever audience we're trying to reach. So why is it important to have good communication skills? First of all, you are all, young adults, and you have personal lives, you have friends, you have crushes, you have family members, right? And you communicate with these people on a daily basis. It is so important that you learn how to communicate effectively in life, because that means that you are able to understand other people who are important to you, and they are able to understand you. This is, again, the crux of communication. You'll see it highlighted over and over and over again. Understanding is at the heart of communication. We communicate with others because we want to be understood, and we want to understand others, right? So it's important to you as high school students because this impacts your relationships, every relationship that you have. If you communicate effectively with those in your life, you stand a chance of having a better relationship with that person or those people. Furthermore, in your professional life, communication is so important. It was ranked, right, first among a job candidate's must-have skills and qualities based on a 2018 survey. Okay. And I'm not surprised, because communication, if you communicate well, if you're able to share ideas and express concerns and address problems effectively with others, you're going to succeed because you understand each other. This applies to, again, your personal life and your professional life. Communication doesn't just happen when you have a job. It also happens when you're trying to get a job, right? Or when you're trying to get into a college, you're writing essays to get into colleges. You are interviewing possibly with colleges. You're interviewing for a job at Chick-fil-A. That is all communication. And that is an opportunity for you to share with somebody who might be a stranger what you're all about, and for you to understand where they're coming from, to see if it's going to be a good match, if it's a good college match, if it's a good work match, right? So communication is vital to you as a high school student, as a human being, okay, on a personal and professional level. So let's kind of break this down a little bit more, just so you have a better kind of idea of how these exchanges happen. First of all, communication, again, is a two-way process. It's not one person. It's not me talking at you kind of like I am right now. I'm really trying to give you examples so that you do understand what I mean. In a perfect world, I'd be giving you more opportunities to, I'd be checking with you to make sure that you understand, right? So that's a note for next time. But it involves two parties, okay? It involves people sending information and people receiving information. Right now, I'm sending information to you, and I'm going to try to make it as clear as possible with my words and with the images that you see and the writing that you see on the screen. But the other half of that is you taking it in to understand what I'm trying to tell you, right? So it's a two-way process. It involves speaking oftentimes, right? And it also involves listening. Listening is a very important component of communicating. If you're not listening to the other person, that communication is not going to happen. That understanding will not happen, right? Because ultimately, it requires that both people understand what is being shared. So if you are, this is just kind of to break it down for you, If you are the sender of information, if you are the person trying to share information with somebody else, whether that is telling them a story about your vacation or explaining to them what the formula for a slope is, right, in algebra, if you are the person sending the information, it's important to communicate it clearly. And we'll break this down a little bit more in a second, but it's very important that you are, taking your time to explain the information. And there is this fine balance, right, of talking too much, which is my problem, and saying too little. And so this is a practice over time, right? But it's important as the sender of information that you're being clear with the person you're trying to communicate with, as clear as you can be. The other component of sending information, of being the person sharing the whatever it is, the information, to be redundant, is that you're checking to make sure they understand you. You're asking questions to make sure that you're both on the same page. And this could be as simple as, where do you want to go to dinner on Saturday? And your friend says Taco Bell. And you say, okay, cool. So Taco Bell, right? Yes. Okay, the Taco Bell on La Paz or the Taco Bell on Alicia Parkway? And that is another clarifying question that you can ask to improve that communication. Because what happens if you don't communicate that? Somebody ends up on La Paz, somebody ends up on Alicia Parkway, and then you're upset and hungry on Saturday evening, right? And that's a very simple version of not communicating clearly and asking for clarifying questions. On the other side, on the flip side of that, if you are the recipient of the information, if somebody is trying to share information with you, that absolutely starts with listening to them. Okay. When we are communicating with somebody, it's important to give them our full attention because we need to absorb what they're telling us, obviously, right? But good communication really does start with the ability to listen and to listen to understand somebody, right? A lot of us, when we're in a conversation, sometimes we feel like we are listening and then we're waiting for our chance to respond to somebody because, oh, we thought of something interesting that they just said and we want to respond to them. And then we're fixated on responding to them. Whereas a good listener is in the moment with their person or the parties that they're with. They are really trying to take in what is being explained to them or told to them, and they're really trying to absorb what's going on, and they're listening to understand. They're not listening to respond, right? And finally, as the receiver of information, you are also going to be asking questions to make sure that you're both on the same page. This all sounds kind of mechanical, right, and a little robotic. This is a practice, and I'm going to say this over and over again. You practice this with every little conversation you have in your life, okay? And you can practice these skills repeatedly. The minute you open your mouth to communicate with somebody else is an opportunity for you to practice these skills. So just a takeaway, this is not the same as straight up just broadcasting information or sending information out into the world. Communication is an active process that requires two parties, and it requires you to be engaged with the people or the person that you are communicating with. And I can't emphasize enough that listening and really being present in the moment with the person or the people and listening will make you a better communicator, because when you're actively listening, you're trying to understand somebody else, right? So I'm going to wrap this up with some top communication skills that you can practice to get better at this. Okay. Like I said, listening is number one. Do not be distracted. If somebody is trying to share something with you, give them the respect of paying attention to them. And if you don't have the time, then arrange for another time to talk to them or to communicate with them, right? But you want to ask those questions if you're unsure about something. You're trying to listen, again, to understand them, not to just respond to them with your own opinions or ideas, right? But listening is at the heart of all of this. Is if you can listen to understand, you're starting in the right place. Going back to nonverbal skills, when you effectively communicate, you are communicating, again, not only with your words and your voice and your tone of voice, but you're also communicating with your entire body. So when you want to communicate effectively, and again, this could be with a friend, this could be with a teacher at a job interview, you want to make sure that you're making appropriate eye contact. We're not constantly staring away like we're bored or looking at the ground like we're totally freaked out, right? but we're also not staring at them 100% of the time and making them super uncomfortable, right? It's a balance and it's practice, right? You're not going to get it right the first time, but looking at somebody in the eye is an indicator that you're respecting their space and their time and them being in front of you. And it's acknowledging that they're the center of your attention at that moment. You know, things like crossing your arms can make you kind of come off closed off, um, which is to say, you don't always have to, like, stand with your arms wide open and be loosey goosey, but there is something about somebody who stands with their arms crossed like this. I don't know if you can see me, right? That makes them look like they're waiting for you to be done talking, or that they're impatient with you, or that they don't have the time of day. And if you want to be a good listener and a good communicator, it's important to show them, again, physically, that you're open to communicating and sharing ideas. This is also, just keep in mind that these skills that I'm talking to you about, these kind of like tips, they're good for you as you're trying to share information with people, but they're also going to be great for you to read other people, right? It's not just about doing these things to be better communicators. It's also about understanding when people act a certain way, when their arms are crossed, if they're staring off into the distance, that's a cue for you to go, okay, am I boring them? Or, are they mad? Like, should I ask if, there's anything that we need to kind of resolve? But it's also a way for you to read other people, is to understand that these postures can indicate that they're feeling a certain kind of way. And that might allow you to pause and make space for that kind of conversation with them. Okay. But like I said, pay attention to their nonverbal communications. I wasn't even looking at my note and I mentioned that. So that's good. Another tip is to make sure that you're being clear and concise when you're communicating with other people. This, I promise you, is practice. You have to practice this, because some of us ramble like I do, and some of us are a little bit too brief in how we communicate. It's important that we think about what we want to say before we say it, right? Give yourself some time to kind of process how you want to share information with somebody if you have something planned, a conversation planned, or an interview. Think about it a little bit so that you kind of formulate it in your head a little bit better. But in a perfect world, we communicate ideas with people in the kind of shortest amount of words it takes for them to clearly understand you, which is to say, you don't want to ramble. Okay. You don't want to go on tangents. You don't want to say something and then have that remind you of the story of this other time and then go off into that tangent, right? You want to keep a clear line of ideas in front of you, and that takes practice. But again, thinking of it ahead of time is a great way to start. Friendliness is really important when you're communicating with somebody. It's not that you have to smile nonstop and like make them feel like the most important person in the world, but friendliness goes a long way in the work realm and in your personal life as well, right? When you're communicating with somebody, you got to check your tone. And the tone of voice that you have. We want to try and strive to be polite, especially in a professional setting. It's showing respect to somebody else when you are polite to them, you're acknowledging them, right? You want to personalize your interactions. If you know their name, use their name, right? John, it's so nice to see you again. Or as John mentioned earlier, if you're in a meeting, you can refer to people by their names. This is a really effective skill in group interviews. If you ever do a group interview for whatever reason, is to acknowledge the other interviewees in the room with you and to acknowledge them by name. It shows that you are somebody who is paying attention and reading the room, right? So something to keep in mind as well. Confidence, again, these are all skills that we're going to practice over time. But when you communicate with somebody, you want that friendly and firm tone, to be able to project your voice so that at least people can hear you. And if you struggle with having a voice that is difficult to hear, then you can practice on your own the ability to kind of project your voice a little bit more so that it's clear. This communication skill goes a long way, again, in work, so that people are used to you articulating your ideas in this confident, easy to understand tone, and they're not constantly asking you to repeat yourself because they can't hear you, right? That makes communication a little bit more difficult. And one way to kind of work on this immediately is some people, they make statements and they turn them into question marks at the end. And that might indicate a certain lack of confidence, right? And I know this might sound kind of superficial to some of you, and you're like, this is silly, like, but these are actually little tweaks that you can make to come off more confident until you're ready to build that confidence, right? But when you turn your statements into questions, it does make you sound a little bit more unsure of what you're saying. And so practice that. The ability to keep your cadence consistent when you're not your cadence, but your the intonation of what you're saying. So instead of saying this month was a really great month, at a meeting, you can say this month was a great month. Boom, your voice doesn't go up, it just stays constant, right? It ends emphatically. Just a few tips for you to consider. Okay. As you start practicing these communication skills, I would start with listening well and making some decent eye contact. That's a good start. And I would definitely also follow that up with asking questions if you're not sure what they're trying to tell you. Okay. Those are probably the best starting points for communicating effectively. One last thing for me, this is a lifelong process. You will be practicing this day in and day out forever. So don't feel overwhelmed by having to be a perfect communicator immediately. Just know that this is something that you can put into practice immediately and that you will definitely get better at if it's something that's at the front of your mind when you're going into your interactions with others. With that, I'm going to pass this off to my colleague, Erica, to tell you some more about communication etiquette so that we are not making any big mistakes as we are dealing with teachers and colleagues and friends in the digital sphere.
Hello, everyone. I'm here to talk to you about communication etiquette. For starters, communication etiquette is one of those skills that's just really difficult to teach in the sense that we're talking about talking to people, we're talking about what it's skills that we need to know to communicate with others. And some of these skills we have, it's kind of like you're walking. It's like you think you're on the right track with how you're communicating, when you're texting to people, how you're presenting yourself, but there's probably some signals and some body language that we're probably sending off that might not be such a good message. So it's important for high school students, if you can go to the next slide. So why is this important for high school students? Communication etiquette is needed in the workplace and when interacting with other people. You are high school students, so sooner or later you might end up having a job after school. You might have a summer job, internship, you might be interviewing for a scholarship or interacting with college admission professionals. And you also might be looking for work after you graduate from high school. So it's very important to start developing these skills right now, because the older you get, the more you'll be interacting people within the professional world. And likewise, we encourage you to put these skills into practice and they will come naturally to you. And also the goal of this presentation is to have an awareness of the skills that you would need to work on. There's nothing wrong right now with like, okay, maybe I need to make more eye contact. Maybe I need to be more cognizant of my body language. So you can take this time to reflect on how can I make my communication skills much better so I can improve my relationships in my personal life and also within my professional life as well. Okay, next. Okay, so verbal versus nonverbal communication. A lot of the communication signals we give off 65% of the time is nonverbal. So again, with facial expressions, like right now I have a very happy face because I'm happy to talk to you all. Tone of voice. So when you're talking to someone, it's very be cognizant of how you're addressing something, and just like I'll give you an example. So we've all heard of the expression, it's fine, I'm fine. And we kind of want to, there's a difference when we hear it that way, like fine, it's fine. So it's also important to just kind of keep our tone of voice in mind. The way we gesticulate, sometimes when we sometimes people like to, if you heard the expression, talk with their hands, like it's a very open, energetic kind of language. They're very happy to be talking to you. And it's that open body language versus, again, demonstrate this very well by showing the closed body language. When you're crossing your arms, it kind of looks like, okay, looks like you're impatient, looks like you don't care for the conversation, you're just waiting to move on to the next topic. And these are just important things to just really keep in mind when you're communicating with other people. We're saying that you might be sending signals, but that might create the wrong impression. And again, I like to emphasize that it's good to practice on these skills while you're still young. So when you get into the real world, these can definitely translate on over. So I always say practice makes perfect. Outer presentation. Also, we want to be look presentable when we're, example, at a job interview, when we're having an interview with a college admissions representative. So there's a reason why the Futureology team is not doing this presentation in pajamas. We're here in our professional work clothes because we want to give a good impression of our professionalism. And when eventually you may get an interview with a college admissions professional, or you might be on a job interview, it's important to have professional attire when you're addressing them because it shows that you care about this and you are serious about this. Okay, next. Okay, again, just to kind of also emphasizing more with body language. We covered eye contact earlier. So it's important to have a very relaxed eye contact. You don't have to be like this all the time. You can just have a very relaxed kind of eye contact. Arms, we went over that briefly. Physical stance, physical space, and personal bubble. So I know we've spent the last year or so practicing 6 feet of social distancing, but we also want to, as we get closer to achieving some type of normality, we also want to keep in mind that people still would like to have some personal space and like a personal bubble. We don't want to be too close to them. We don't want to be in other people's faces. We also want to still keep a nice, friendly, perhaps arm shake length distance between people, just because it shows that we respect their personal space, and we also respect their personal space as well. Power stances. So it's important that when we're talking to someone, especially if you're talking face to face, that we're on the same level. So if I'm talking to someone and I want to make sure that we're on the same page, I want to be sitting at the same level as the person. I don't want to be standing up because it shows more authority. It shows that I have authority over them. But if I want someone to be like just on the same level as me, we'd be like looking at each other in the eye, and we just be literally just on that same level. Again, just emphasizing clothing and appearance. It's important that if we're on a job interview, if we're meeting with a college admissions representative, or if we're doing a very important presentation with a city council member, it's important to also be cognizant of what we're wearing, because when we look like we're taking the job seriously, and that also communicates that we're also taking it seriously as well. All right, next. Okay, social cues. So these are the signals people send through body language and expressions. So simple social cues, you can see here on the image, like waving hello means hi. Looking away kind of seems like, okay, not too interested in it. But it's important to just start learning how to pick up these social cues through various body language, because when we miss social cues, we can misunderstand people and situations. So again, being very cognizant of tone of voice, being very cognizant of body language and how someone's presenting themselves to us. So it's also important to read what the social cues are. Okay. All right, electronic communication. So this is more on the written communication side, and the 3 aspects I want to cover here are email, texting. And when I mention texting, I'm not just talking about texting on like iPhone, on Messenger. I'm also talking about interacting in example, social media posting. A lot of times when you're working with other people, especially within a company, you might be using something like Microsoft Teams or Discord. So it's important to also just keep in mind how we communicate in texting spaces as well. Social media, we'll also go over social media. And throughout high school, university, and beyond, you will be using electronic communication, be it for personal or professional reasons. This is the age we live in, and this is kind of the field that we need to learn how to play in. All right. So for email addresses, if you do not have a professional sounding email address, you can do so by going on to Gmail. And a professional email address, what it looks like is your initials and your last name. It's just as simple as that. It could be your first initial, your middle initial, last name, first name, middle name, last name, and that's usually an accepted form of a professional email. It doesn't have to be Gmail. It can also be Yahoo, Hotmail, etc. And when on the sender form, you want to make sure you have your first and last name. I worked as a college admissions professional, and I've seen people use their gamer tags on the sender form. And okay, we probably don't want to see that, but we want to see your first and last name to show an air of professionality that you're taking this seriously when you're reaching out to us. Direct subject line. So subject line, make sure you have something on there. Like, let's say you're reaching out to an admissions professional and you want to know about we want to know information about auditioning for the music program. So your subject line might look like question about music program audition. You want to just keep it to the point and just keep it short and sweet. Don't use hey or don't leave a subject at all. It's just really important to just kind of keep something just very matter of fact in the subject line. So when I'm reading this as an admissions person, I'm already prepared with an answer, because I will most likely prioritize emails with a subject line versus ones without a subject line. And a lot of times emails without a subject line can also go into the spam folder, into the junk folder as well. So that's why it's important that we have a very direct subject line. Salutation. So you also want to, if you know the person you're trying to contact via email, you can use a greeting such as dear Miss, Mr. Mix, if you're unsure of the gender. But if you're unsure of who you need to write it out to, you can always use the classic to whom it may concern. For the body of the email, once you're done with your salutation, just keep it very simple and to the point. So let's say you're looking for a information on audition for the music program. Dear, to whom it may concern, my name is such and such. I'm a student at this high school. I'm thinking about applying to this program. I would like to know more information. I very much appreciate your time. So keep it very simple, very to the point. Let them know that you appreciate their time. And it's also important to add a signature at the end of your message. So that'd be your first and last name. You could also include your email address, and you can also include example, if you're a student at San Clemente High School graduating class of 2005, San Clemente High School class of 2005. And you can keep yours, as long as your signature has like some way of contacting you, your first and last name, that's also very helpful too. All right, let's just take a look at an example here. So this is an example of what not to do. So we'll just kind of go through this and just dissect what not to do here. So the from line, it's not quite a professional sounding email address from a student. So we want to make sure we have a something that resembles a first name, last name at emailaddress.com. Subject, hi, probably not the kind of subject we want to take a look at. Maybe something that's more direct to what the person is trying to ask. There's no salutation on here. So anytime there's no salutation, it's perceived to us who receive the email, we perceive that as rude. So it's very important to have a direct greeting on there. And even if we're not sure who it is, we could always use that phrase, to whom it may concern. And you can kind of see here that the text here doesn't quite look professional. So we want to like just make sure that we also have a very calm kind of tone, very collected when we're also emailing a professor, a college admissions rep, a scholarship rep, etc. And for signature, again, we also want to just have a sign off, regards, kind regards, best, or thank you, with our first and last name and any additional contact information we want to add on that signature. Okay. All right, texting. Like I mentioned earlier in this section, texting also applies to interacting in Facebook groups as well as professional electronic groups such as Microsoft Teams and Discord. My previous experience, I used to work in college admissions, and I also hired students to also work for our office. And a lot of times, supervisors will also, we also be texting students, and we encourage students to text us in case if there's if there's an emergency or if they're running late, etc. So the reason why we're also bringing this up, because you might find yourself in this situation. What is the most appropriate way to interact with a supervisor who is texting you, or you need to text your supervisor about something? So spell all words. Don't use the letter K. Use okay. Limit emojis. You don't have to like go crazy on using all the emojis. I mean, it's okay to like, again, going back with presenting tone. If you want to say congratulations or thank you, it's totally appropriate to follow that up with like a smiley face emoji or a heart afterwards, or congratulations with the confetti emoji. That is totally appropriate, but normally we would just like to limit our emojis anytime we're interacting with a supervisor. Use proper capitalization. So it's very important to just make sure that we have proper grammar, proper cognizance of that, because if you see here in the example here, if you have your caps locks on, that means in internet speak, it means you're yelling. So you want to make sure that you have the appropriate capitalization when you're text messaging and when you're posting online, because when you're posting in all caps, it comes off as being rude. When you're texting in a professional setting, it's also important to text during business hours. So 8 a.m. to about 5 p.m. is totally appropriate. And it's also important, again, to be polite when you're interacting online, be it texting, Discord, or through Microsoft Teams. Okay, I should say. Social media. Personal social media can be public or private. That is up to you. But you also want to be cognizant and ask yourself, what would colleges and professionals would like to know about you? So something that a lot of students that I've worked with, they have professional portfolios online. They have an Instagram account showcasing poetry, photography, or any type of like 3D art that they might have. So they've been using websites to also show off some of their artwork, some of their activism work. So you can definitely use social media to show off like any artistic talents, activism you might have been involved with. If you're a writer, you can definitely share some short stories on there. So you can also use social media to your best advantage to showcase your talents and showcase any extracurricular you're involved in. And later on in this presentation, we'll go over LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a professional networking website, and we'll definitely go over how you can create a LinkedIn profile and what is professional and what is appropriate to have on a LinkedIn profile. Okay, last but not least, presentation etiquette. So we're back in the classroom, and we had to do presentations in front of our classmates. So it's important to just determine the beginning, middle, and end. It's like you're writing a story. You have to know like how you start it, what's the meat of it, and how you're going to conclude it. Use slides with seeable text. So you want to make sure you're not using a hot pink background with neon yellow text. That would be too gauche and that wouldn't be very easy to read. So like in this presentation, we have like a very comforting blue with white text on here. Slow down and breathe. So it's just very important to just, when you're going through your presentation, to just slow down so people can understand you. And it's okay to take a moment to breathe as well. And be sure, again, with that eye contact, make eye contact with the audience. And also, if by chance, if you're doing a presentation online via Zoom, always make eye contact with that camera. Okay. All right, now let's take it away with digital fluency.
All right. Thank you, Erica. So hi, everybody. I'm going to be talking about digital fluency. So you just all just learned about one 21st century skills, which is communication skills, right? So now we're going to kind of switch it over and you're going to learn about a separate set of or a different 21st century skill, which is digital fluency, which I heard B earlier mention that communication skills is probably one of the most essential, or maybe I got it wrong, but it's one of the most essential skills that, you know, today's workers, today's young adults, everybody should be able to have. And I agree with her, but I also think digital fluency is kind of very close since we're in the internet age, right? So I will be covering all of that with you and what that means. So we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So digital fluency encompasses a lot of things, right? So, but the basic start of it is utilizing technology, right? So someone who is digital fluent, right? Someone who has digital fluency knows how to operate computer, tablets, all these different technologies. They know how to use programs, they know how to use apps, they know how to use browsers. So that's the basic of it, right? I would argue if somebody is just starting with that, they only know this, how to utilize technology, their only focus is on this, they're not actually practicing digital fluency, right? Because as you can see on my screen, digital fluency is made up of all these other things that encompass you being able to use digital technologies effectively and productively. Okay, so the next kind of tenet of digital fluency is going to be ethics and innovation, right? So in order for you to have digital fluency, you also have to understand the right and wrong, both morally and legally, right? So you understand what you can share on the digital space, right? What you can share on the internet. You understand, like, you know, what kind of things like documents, pictures, programs can you share on the internet, that you're thinking about that in the back of your mind. You're not just sharing anything and everything on the internet, because you understand that what is on the internet can stay there forever, right? So you have that understanding in addition to being able to utilize that technology, right? So the next tenet is going to be searching for information. So this one is kind of, I feel like really, really important now. You know, there's a lot of misinformation out there. And you as a student being able to be successful in some of your classes, you need to know how to find reputable, accurate information, right? So that is also something. If you are digital fluent, you know how to use online tools, you know how to find a reputable source, right? You know that, you know, Reddit is probably not a reputable source. Facebook is not probably a reputable source. So an example of this would be like, we get a lot of students, because we're college and career counselors, we get a lot of students and that come in and tell us, you know, they found this information about a specific college. And when we ask them where they got it from, some of them may tell us, you know, we got it off of Reddit, we got it off of Facebook. So it's really important that you understand how to how to find reputable and accurate information too, as part of being digital fluent. It's also important that as somebody who is digital fluent, they know that technology tools are not just, you know, used individually, they're also collaborative tool, right? So you understand that being able to use, your phone, you can use it for a lot of different things. You can communicate with others, you can collaborate with others. Your computer is also a very powerful tool, right? A very powerful technology tool that helps you, allows you to work with somebody across the world or to meet somebody across the world. So you also understand that technology tools are not just simply, advancing us to the next level of whatever that is, right? It's also a really great tool for you to inspire collaboration with people from as small as, your classmate, or as small as your family, but as big as, the world. So, so those are the 4 main tenets of digital fluency. And I went ahead and added a couple more, just because I think that it doesn't fully, these 4 tenets don't fully kind of say what our students, what I think students should be also learning more about as they're learning more about different technologies, and as they're preparing for life after high school or even during high school. So I added digital identity management, right? So I think somebody who is digital fluent also understands that they need to know how to manage their online reputation and presence. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this later on during the professional, how to build a professional online presence. So I feel like that's also a really important part of being digital fluent, is you understand like what you put on your, if you have social media, for example, you understand that what you put on there is also setting the stage of what is your online reputation and your presence. So I added that as a tenet. And then the other one that I added is digital communication, right? So we covered a lot of different things about communication, but you also need to know how to effectively communicate using different digital tools. So like the email communications, like the texting communications, right? Especially with specific audiences, right? So you may communicate informally with your friends, your family, but you also need to know the difference between communicating with a friend and a family and communicating with a teacher, let's say, for example, or your counselor. So I added that as a really important piece, especially for all of you young adults that, you're getting more and more tools, right? So some of you have had your phones for years, but some of you may just got your phone. So you need to understand that that's also something really important, right? That is part of digital fluency. All right, let's keep going. So I kind of covered this a little bit, right? So why is this an important skill? And it isn't a very important 21st century success skill. Having a successful high school experience, understanding how to use different technology tools. So if you remember, last year we all lived online, right? We were doing everything completely online. We were going to school online. We were meeting with students online. Some of you are still doing that, right? You're still meeting with some of us online. So it has become kind of a very, almost a norm, right? For you to expect for some sort of, being able to participate in the online space in a successful and productive and safe way, right? So that's why it's such an important skill. It's also an important skills because today's workers, right? Because one day you will be society's workers as well. You will need to be more proactive and more tech savvy than in the past, right? So we are in the digital age, we are in the internet age. So it is important that as high school students, you have an understanding of how to use technology tools so that you're not going in the workforce, right? Or going into college like a deer in the headlights, right? You don't understand. You can adapt to all these different changes in technology. So it's really important that you are establishing that skill as early, in high school or even earlier, right? Because kids right now, there's that term iPad kid. So there is those things too. So it's really important that you develop this skill as you're going through high school, because it could really set you up for success in the future, whether it's college, whether it's the workforce, or even right now, if you do have a job, or if you do an internship or all of that. So the digital world is not only a fun space, right? Because it could be a lot of fun, right? But it is also a space where more and more employers are using to find or screen workers. So in a few minutes, I will talk a little bit more about what employers are doing with this information that they're finding online, or how they're operating in a digital space. It's really interesting. It's really fascinating. But more and more employers are finding, or are using the internet to find employees, to find the people that they want they want for their company. So it is a important thing that students need to, to be digital fluent so that they can be successful in this space, in the digital space. Okay, so let's keep going. So I wanted to do a little activity for with all of you, just because I want to make sure that that digital fluency is something that you all understand, because I do think it's an important skill. So last year, there was this scandal by Cal State Los Angeles. There's a scandal of students were allegedly using this GroupMe app. It's a group communication app. You can chat with different people, you can create groups to share quiz answers and their work, right? So there was, they were allegedly using this app to do, to allegedly cheat on some of these things. So what happened is this came forward, or it became a cheating scandal because another student brought up these actions on a discussion board on Canvas, right? So we're using two different platforms. So GroupMe and then Canvas is where another student, brought these things to light, right? They brought these allegations up in Canvas. So a lot of things happening, right? So I wanted to ask you all, just with the basic information that I'm sharing with all of you, is were these students, right? Both cases, right? The students that were allegedly using this app to share quizzes and the student that brought up these allegations on Canvas board, were they practicing digital fluency? Are they digitally fluent with these different tools that they're using? So if you can all just, share your thoughts on the poll, right? So we might be split. So far, we're 50-50. Okay. All right. So were these students practicing digital fluency? So think about all those tenets, those 6 tenets that I went over with digital fluency to respond to this question. I really want to hear your thoughts. And this is interesting. So I'm going to end the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Right. So it was going back and forth. So let me share the results. But really, yes, I would argue that no, these students are not practicing digital fluency for multiple reasons, right? But let's go over. So I'm glad that most of you understood that. Yeah, in my personal opinion, I don't think that these students are practicing digital fluency. So let's review the personal attributes, right, of digital fluency. First one, the basic, is utilizing technology. Yes, they were good at that, right? They understood how to use these different platforms, right? Canvas and GroupMe. So that's easy, right? So if we were just focusing on that, then yeah, they are practicing, I would probably say not digital fluency, more like digital literacy, right? They understand how to use these tools, but they didn't consider all these other things. So considering ethics, right? Considering ethics, sharing quiz answers, or allegedly sharing quiz answers and answers and all of that is probably not very ethical, right? So I would argue that no, if these students were allegedly actually doing this, sharing these quiz answers, then I would say that, I would argue that this tool is probably more of like GroupMe would better serve as a collaborative tool. It is a great tool for students to communicate and share knowledge, share, if a student missed a class, they can go into the group and ask, what did I miss in class? Can you all share your notes? So, there is a difference between, sharing information and building information in these spaces and cheating, right? So it is, I would argue in that sense that number 2 is one of the ones that I would focus on in this specific case, is that they didn't understand the differences between right and wrong and using these digital tools in a right or wrong sense. So it did inspire a lot of collaboration, right? So that's the interesting thing, that it did inspire collaboration, but it wasn't a productive collaboration. It wasn't inspiring collaboration that would build success for students, that would build a community where students felt like, they were being supported, because the student came forward because she believed it was unfair for students who were preparing for class, who were, studying and all of that. So it didn't inspire full collaboration for most students. And then let's focus on those three for now. But I also think number 5 is going to be one that comes up because the student who posted on Canvas, she actually was harassed, right? It trended on Twitter and she was harassed. So her identity was, brought up a lot too in this case. So it is also the student did not practice, protect her identity while she brought up these allegations. And that was something that made her, that she faced a lot of backlash for. So it is a complicated case, but for the most part, in my opinion, these students were not practicing digital fluency. So good job, everybody. So let's kind of go a little bit deeper into how do we operate in the internet, how do we operate on that, but actually talk a little bit more sense of like, how do you build a professional online presence, right? So we just learned about digital fluency, how to use different digital tools, but I want to kind of focus more so on like the digital identity management, right, piece of digital fluency with this piece of building your professional online presence. So let's start with defining online presence. So an online presence is a collection of an individual's activity on the internet. So your digital footprint. A person's online presence can be developed through social media platforms, online article, blogs, websites, all these different areas where your name might be brought up or your image might be, included. So that's in general online presence, right? But a professional online presence, if we go on to the next slide. There we go. So a professional online presence is how you specifically market yourself for potential employers or anyone who can help you grow professionally. All right, so we're focusing on that professional piece, right? It is important that you know how to not just build an online presence in general, because anyone can, put anything online and have an online presence, but we're focusing more so on the professional and how you market yourself for, potential employers, potential universities, potential, somebody who can help you go professionally, maybe somebody who you can network with and can set you up with, a potential internship, right? So it is important that you make that distinction, right? That there is a distinction between professional online presence and just having an online presence. So in the midst of the growing gig economy, right? So there's a lot of, like Uber and all of that, and food apps and all of that. So social media has become a powerful tool. It has become a powerful tool, not just for, as potential employees, right? But it's also become a really powerful tool for companies, right? To reach potential employees, right? So you can see the image here. For example, TerraCycle company, they're using their social media platform, their Instagram for in this case, to look for potential, people to join their company. So they're using these tools, and it has become a very powerful tool for, for people to find work and for companies to find employees. Nearly 80% of employers reported that using social media, nearly 80% of employers reported that they use social media in their recruiting efforts. So it's become like I said, really the norm for a lot of employers to be using social media to find their next employees. So pro tip though is that companies also have an online presence, right? So they are really spending a lot of money to have this image of their company out there on using their social media. So pro tip is that you can use this also as to vet a company, whether that company is going to be a good fit for you, to determine fit. You can use this also for like colleges, right? Because colleges are also spending a lot of money to build a specific image of their institution or their school. So it has become, like I said, the norm with is that these not just individuals but companies, institutions have an online presence. Okay. So Erica mentioned earlier, right, that LinkedIn is one way to kind of market yourself, right? It has become the leading professional networking platform. It is 100% professional platform. It's a great way for anybody to find a to network with other people, other professionals, colleagues, share and learn about like the industry that they're interested in, research companies, find jobs, find internships. Recruiters can find employees there. And it operates as an online resume, but a little bit better. You can add a few more things on there. It allows you to create and maintain a professional online presence. So if you were ever like, how do I even start? You can start with LinkedIn. You have to be 16 years old to access. So I know some of you may be younger than that, but 16 years is not, it's not like a big age difference for some of you who are, 14 or 15. So this is something that you can do while you're in high school, is to build a LinkedIn profile or a virtual or online resume using this platform. So, and the reason we're bringing this up is because LinkedIn has, like I said, become the leader in, the professional networking, and 65% of employers use LinkedIn to recruit employees. There's so many posts of jobs on there, internships and all of that. So, and according to a 2021 report, 52% of recruiters surveyed believe that LinkedIn produces the highest quality candidates. So they look for LinkedIn to find, the top people that they're looking for, right? Or that, they're looking for those really, quality people or candidates, and they're relying on LinkedIn. So it has become a really great way for, for young adults, people looking for jobs to build their professional online presence and put themselves out there for potential employers. So let's keep going. All right, so some strategies of using social media, like LinkedIn, for example. You can use also, you can use other social media to build, your professional online presence. But for now, I'm going to focus on LinkedIn. But you can use as for example, LinkedIn as it is a technology and it is a networking tool. But where you need to start, or some of the tips that you need to consider, is you need to feature a lot of positive things in your profile. So like leadership, involvement, if you have any certifications, if you have extracurricular activities like clubs, if you're involved in clubs, sports, any interests or hobbies you may have a complete profile, right? So don't just add your picture and then your basic information like your school, your grade level, all those different things, like your GPA, the relevant coursework. You have to have a complete profile. So this, like relevant skills, relevant work experience on there, if you have any. So it is important that you have a complete profile, because that gets you more views, right? Especially for LinkedIn, if you have a complete profile, that can lead to more people seeing your profile. Showcase your professional knowledge and skills. So talk about the relevant coursework. I mentioned that already. Include links if you have a digital portfolio. So for some of our art students, if you have a portfolio online, link it there. If you've been mentioned in articles, if you created videos related to an industry that you're interested in. So like if you created a robot and you have a video of it, include that in your profile. So you want to be active as well, right? You want to keep updating with different things, and not necessarily like you have to update every day. If you can, great, but that means like updating with like new set of skills that you're developing, new things that you're doing. But keep in mind that everything that you want to post on here has to be positive, and it has to be relevant to what you're hoping to accomplish, whether it's an internship, whether it's a specific job. You want to make sure that it is relevant to those things as well. All right, let's keep going. Thank you. Okay, so so that was the positive end of building your online presence. But I also want to talk about your online reputation, or your digital footprint, and how to kind of investigate or see what your online reputation is. So I want to ask you all, right? You don't have to answer, but have you ever performed a Google search for your name? Try it, right? If you can, you open it up in another browser and try it and type in your first and last name and see what the results are. Maybe nothing comes up, maybe something comes up, but you want to make sure that you are, doing this, regularly, or, so that you can know what your online reputation is. Because what if, let's say, for example, you're applying for a job and they look up your name on on Google, right? They Google your name. So what kind of things are going to come up? So you need to be aware of those things so that you can, see what you find and potentially maybe have it removed, right? So if it's, for example, your Instagram is public, right, and they find you, so that's something that you can fix right away, right? You can make your profile private so that no one else can see it. So you need to perform this, or I encourage you all to perform this so that you can know what your online reputation is, and kind of be more proactive about what it is that you're putting out there on the internet space, on the digital space. So let's keep moving. More tips, okay? So you can also, use other search engines, like Yahoo and Bing. But if you don't find anything with your first and last name, also include your city, just to be more specific. But after that, if you do find anything, like I said, or even if you don't, if your personal social networking is public, turn it to private. Especially if you're doing a job search, especially if you're looking for an internship, especially if you're in the middle of applying for colleges, for example, right? It's not common for colleges to look at your social media, but it is something just to practice, just in case there is something out there that is doesn't paint a very positive light for you. You can also use your middle initial. So on resume, right? So it's important that for example, for LinkedIn, it is a digital, kind of like a digital resume. You can use your middle initial rather than using your full legal name on there. Again, just to protect your digital identity, right? Digital identity management is important as you're also cleaning up your digital dirt or your digital footprint. All right, let's keep going. All right, so another case study. I wanted to, again, kind of test to see where you all are at in terms of learning about all this stuff. Some of you may already be pros and are already practicing some of these things. Some of you maybe are newbies at this. So I want to see where everyone's at in terms of, the do's and don'ts of building a professional online presence. So let's do a little case study. So KS is a junior at Capo Valley High School. Hey, shout out to Capo Valley. They have decided to open a LinkedIn account to find internship opportunities. So they are, very interested in finding an internship, and they decided to use LinkedIn as part of looking for an internship. So what are some things that JS should include on his LinkedIn profile? So it's, I'm going to put the poll. Give me just a second. Let's see. So there's only one right answer. So what should JS exclude as part of his LinkedIn profile? So look at those answers on the poll. Remember all those different tips that we went over. Remember digital fluency. So what are some things that JS should exclude, right? Not add, exclude as part of his LinkedIn profile. Okay, so I'll give you a few more seconds. Okay, good. So is it cashier job at Target, Rotary Club president, excuse me, skating videos, name of your school, CPR first aid certification. Okay, so I'm going to close it up in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay. All right. So yeah, most of you got it. Yes, JS, did I say KS or JS? I think I changed the name of both of those, but KS, let's just go with KS. I would say, yeah, exclude skating videos unless it's related to the industry he wants to go into, right? Maybe it's skating. But I would say don't include any personal posts on there on, your professional. If you use, for example, LinkedIn, don't include that on LinkedIn. Stay very professional and stay very positive. And stay very specific to the industry that you're interested in, or the things that you want to accomplish or the goals that you may have. So avoid making personal posts on there. So good. And then somebody said school, and I know that one's a little confusing because remember, we want to stay private, we want to protect our identity, but it is also, it could be helpful for employers to know the name of the school that you're attending, just so they could get a sense of the area that you're working in. Maybe it could give a sense of the kind of classes you're taking, the strengths of your the classes that you're taking at that school. So I would say adding your school on there is still, it's okay for you to include the name of your school. Okay, so let's go over some do's. So do include your GPA, do include your school, as I mentioned, do include your grade level. That's basic information that I think if KS is looking for an internship, I think that's also something that, you know, the person who's gonna be where he is interning would be interested to know. All these things give more information about the student, like GPA will give information about the strength of the student academically. The grade level would give very much indication of where the student's at in terms of grade and developmentally and all of that. So relevant coursework is also something really important. Again, keyword relevant, you want to make sure that it's relevant to the industry that you're interested in. So if you want to go into an internship with, you know, computer science, you want to add if you've taken any computer science courses or any science courses or math courses, right? You're taking that you have completed. Extracurricular activities, right? So they want to see what kind of things that you are doing outside of the classroom. So that's also something that is positive to include on there. Relevant work experience is also something that you want to include. So I would say, even if you do have any work experience, it shows that you have this set of skills that you were able to develop through that work experience, even if it's not too relevant, right? Like let's go back to the example of computer science, right? You want to do an internship at computer science, maybe, you know, including a career, your job at Target, I would still say you include that because that shows that you've developed these specific set of skills that are really, really useful for anybody to have in any field. Like working well with others, being able to have, you know, customer service skills. Those things I think are really useful in many different areas. Special achievements, right? So if you receive, you know, honor roll, or you've been selected, you know, in as most valuable team player or something like that, right? So special achievements are also really something really positive to include on your profile. Special skills like CPR or first aid certification, any other special skills that you may have. If you know coding, that's also something that you can include on there. But let's talk about the don'ts. So don't include, I already mentioned this, your personal private information. So don't include your address. You don't have to include that. That's something that's very, very personal. And if you are a minor, no, that's a big no, right? So don't include your address. Even me as an adult, I don't include my address on my resume. So don't include your full address. You can include city if you like, but don't include your full address. We've talked about personal posts, right? So don't include that unless they're, you know, relevant to that specific industry that you're looking at, and it's a positive post. It paints you in a really good light. Make sure that you're avoiding typos, grammar errors. Those could also, you know, be a big no when you're looking at someone's profile. Exaggerations or lies, right? So you want to be true and honest with the things that you're posting on your online profile, or whatever it is that you're posting on your wherever it is that you're working on, whether it's LinkedIn or somewhere else. And then don't also include inappropriate pictures, right? So what I also meant by that is that if you're going to be making, let's say, for example, a LinkedIn profile, you have to add a picture. Use a, you know, you can take it on your phone. It doesn't have to be like a professional headshot, but make sure that you're, you know, you're presenting yourself in a good manner. You're not, you know, posting inappropriate pictures where you're making a face or, you know, or something like that. So it is also important that you don't include inappropriate pictures. And then I did include on there, if you want to start a LinkedIn profile, if you're 16 years old or older and you want to start a LinkedIn profile, or even if you're younger than that, you want to get more information about it, I did link a checklist that LinkedIn put together for students who want to start a LinkedIn profile. So we will share that after the presentation. We'll share the whole presentation actually. I just wanted to give you more resources if you want to continue practicing the skill of learning more about digital fluency. If you want to practice any other skills that you see on the screen, we just wanted to give you more resources. I also added another LinkedIn resource that I found really useful. or that I thought would be useful for all of you is tips to finding jobs and internships in LinkedIn. It also talks about building a full profile. So that one was my favorite of the tips, is that you have to have a complete profile on LinkedIn. So that's your resources. And we're going to share with the presentation, so you'll have access to all these links. So we're wrapping up. This was part 1 of our career success sequence. It's a 4-part series. The next 3 parts are on the screen. So the next one is we're gonna talk about creating your resume. So please join us. We're going to talk about all the different components of building your resume. You got a little preview with me, kind of going over what you should include on if you use LinkedIn, or if you want to use LinkedIn, an online or virtual resume. So you got a little preview of that, but we'll go in more detail during that webinar. So if you can all join us, that would be great. We're also going to be doing another one on how to ace your interview, whether it's a job interview, whether it's an internship interview, or whether it's a scholarship interview. So we are going to be covering how to ace an interview, like what are the important interviewing skills you need to practice to prepare for an interview. And then we're going to come together, right, with all these different skills that you've developed. If you attend all of the 3 previous events, we're going to wrap up with our part 4, which is our online professional mock interviews. So we're going to have professionals interview you if you do participate. You're going to be interviewed by professional volunteers, and you're going to get on the spot feedback about your performance, right? So it's a really great way for you to practice your interviewing skills and to get more comfortable with being interviewed, being comfortable in that setting. So it is a really great opportunity as well. And all of these events are completely free. You can register on our website. All right. So that is all. We're wrapping up a little bit early, just in time for if there's any questions. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening for part 1 of our career success sequence. I had a lot of fun. It was really great to have all of you. So if there are no questions, you are free to go. I do ask that if you have your phone, please give us some feedback on how we can improve our future events. So we really, really value your opinion and thoughts on how we perform tonight. And if you have any suggestions for what we can do in the future, please throw those in the feedback survey. So if there are no questions, you are free to go. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.